I used to read before kids, and then after I had my kids, I never read at all. I had 4 years where I didn't read anything, and I hated it. But then I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna stop being stingy, and I got Audible, and then later I learned about the app Libby, where I could listen to books and do Kindle books through my library. Reading again has literally been transformative. So without further ado, the books that I read in 2019, I'm going to start with the 8 memoirs that I read. Hungry, I appreciated it. I was glad I read it, but it was a tough read. Eloquent Rage, I appreciated hearing her story. I was glad I read it, but I didn't love it. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, classic. I'm embarrassed that I hadn't read it yet. Of course, it was wonderful. I Am Malala. This book will make you very uncomfortable in your privilege. If you think you have problems, read this book and that will shut you up. Becoming was a wonderful book, but it wasn't on my top list. Born a Crime, awesome, funny, moving. Trevor Noah is one of a kind, but you must listen to the audio version first. When They Call You a Terrorist, I am so glad I read this book. It really makes it clear the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a very short, and it's, like I said, it is a memoir, so it's very easy to read, and I know that it will make an impact on you, and you'll enjoy it. It's a good book. The Last Black Unicorn, a hilarious and amazing story. If you do not love Tiffany Haddish now, then you will after reading her story. And I definitely think that listening to it is a must because she tells it and it is so funny. I would have to say, out of all the memoirs, my absolute favorite, maybe Born a Crime, but When They Call You a Terrorist was very good for me to just know what I learned from that book. And The Black Unicorn definitely wins the funniest. I read 7 nonfiction books. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks was an awesome book, surprisingly captivating. I did not know why. I thought it was going to be boring, but maybe because it's a larger book, but it wasn't at all. It was fascinating and I highly recommend it. Nonviolent Communication, also highly recommended. I read it because Marie Forleo said that she makes everyone in her company read it, and I would have to say it is very helpful. If you have any communication issues with a family member or a coworker, it will help you. I don't recommend listening to it as much. I would definitely get the book and read it. There are, I think, some graphs and some visuals, and the guy who reads, the author reads it, and he just sounds like he's 200 years old, and he reads like unbelievably slowly. And I just think I would have much more enjoyed reading the book. The Path Appears. Now, I want to reread this book and then do maybe a thorough book review on it. It was really good. But it is dense with data, and it also includes action steps that each person reading the book can take to make an impact in the world, which is why I love it. And this book is the reason why I started my giving circle last year. The Conscious Parent. Whoa. Okay, this book is a game changer for your life, your children's lives, and your relationship with yourself and your kids. I would put this book in my life-changing book list. Doing Good Better is about altruism. I didn't like it. I mean, it's not a bad book, but I think I just don't really like altruism, I guess. It's all about numbers and helping people based on numbers. It has nothing to do with how you feel or what you're passionate about. It's a good book. It's just know what you're getting into. Nurture Shock. I really wanted to read the chapter on race, but I ended up just reading the whole thing. It's kind of an old book, and some of the things aren't really that shocking anymore, so meh. We Live for We, The Political Power of Black Motherhood. This book was underwhelming for me, but I am not the target audience. If you are a brand new first-time parent, especially a brown or black mother, you would probably enjoy this book. So out of all 7 nonfiction books that I read, I'd have to give the best one to Conscious Parent because it was so life-changing, but The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks is definitely like the most fun and enjoyable to read. The Path Appears is great, and Nonviolent Communication is really great if you are looking for books that talk about those things. The other ones, meh. I read 10 books that I would put in the category of race and African American studies. Between the World and Me, I mean, this book is beautiful. It's moving. It's a classic must read, and it's short as hell, so there's really no excuse not to read it. It's a letter from an African American father to his son, but again, everyone should read it. White Fragility, a must read for all white people. Bottom line, I want to reread this book as well and do a thorough book review on it. Stamped from the Beginning. If you are passionate about the fight against racism, this is a must read. I loved this book. I love Ibram X. Kendi. This is a huge book, and it took months for me to just listen to it. But it was enthralling and fascinating. You will not regret reading it. So You Want to Talk About Race. An easy, great read for all people. She talks about and to every race. The table of contents will tell you everything you need to know about this book and what it will be about. And then I would say if you don't want to talk about race, you really, really need to read this book. How to Be an Anti-Racist. This is probably my favorite read of all 42 books that I read this year. It's part memoir, part history, part nonfiction. It's read by the author, which is a great treat. Please read this book. Bad Feminist. This book is very funny. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it has definitely made me a fan of Roxane Gay. White Rage. This book is very difficult to read. I do not recommend it to people of color. It's really hard to imagine the hate, ignorance, and violence white people have today and in generations before us. Red at the Bone. This was a novel that I read for a book club. I didn't like it a lot, and the people in the book club with me didn't love it either. I think it's one of those books that critics really, really like, but readers are like, Tell Me Who You Are. This is a textbook, and it's a great book. It's interesting. It's got a whole bunch of profiles about people talking about race. I thoroughly enjoyed it. On the Other Side of Freedom, The Case for Hope. This book was just okay for me. The guy is very cool, and his podcast is great, and I would definitely recommend that. But unless you are looking to be exactly like him or do the things that he has done, it's not really applicable to everybody. So I read 10 books on race and African American studies, and I loved almost all of them. I really enjoyed them. If I had to pick my favorite, I think I already said How to Be an Anti-Racist. I wish everybody could read, but it's hard to not also say, I mean, Between the World and Me, must read. White Fragility, must read. So You Want to Talk About Race, read it. And How to Be an Anti-Racist, put that at the top of your list. I read 14 self-improvement books, and I know that's a lot, but they're so easy to read and get through, and I do have a bit of a passion for self-improvement stuff, so it is what it is. I'm going to start with my favorite, Loving What Is. It is a life changer, a mindset changer, a guide to experiencing freedom from inner turmoil. If you have any baggage from your childhood, any anxiety about your future or your child's future, any relationship that causes you stress, basically if you aren't in constant state of zen, then read this book. The Awakened Woman. I love Dr. Tara Trent, and I love her story. It's so moving and so unbelievable. This book is part memoir. This book will shut you up from complaining because you will discover that your problems are actually mere inconveniences. Also, she will light a fire under your ass to discover and then do your passion. Change the world, shine your light, all the things. Her voice is the best, so get the audio. Atomic Habits. I love this book. If you are at all asking yourself, why can't I stop doing that? Or why can't I start doing this? How come I've tried to exercise and I just can't? I've tried to do yoga, I've tried to meditate, I've tried to whatever habit it is, and you just cannot seem to get the hang of it. Or why can't I stop smoking? Why can't I stop X, Y, or Z? This book is all you need. It's a game changer, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Daring Greatly. Wonderful. I mean, y'all know Brene Brown. What can I say? Girl, Stop Apologizing and Girl, Wash Your Face. Meh. A waste of my time, I feel. I would also say that I could tell that I am not the target audience. I read these because they're at my library. So the next book, The Way of the Superior Man. I read this with my husband, okay? And I wouldn't necessarily just recommend it to anybody, but my husband and I are very good friends and we're great co-parents. But you know, when you have little kids, things can slow down. And this book was all we needed. How to Meditate. A good, simple, short read. I'm glad I read it. It helped me with my personal practice. I picked it up because it was at my library. There are probably other meditation books out there that are just as great. The Power of Habit. This book was okay, but Atomic Habits was way better. So unless you are just a habit nerd and want to read everything on it, you can skip this one. Everything is Figure Outable. Good. This is a great book, but it was not as good as I was expecting. Now, I will say that I already live by the everything is figure outable idea and have for many years, so maybe I'm just not the target audience. I don't have as much to get over as maybe someone else reading the book, but I love Marie and I plan on rereading it slower and doing more of the work that she suggests. Before Happiness. This book made very little impact on me and I can barely remember it. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. This book is not bad, but it was not as good as I was expecting from all the hype. But it may also be that I already live the way that he's trying to convince people to live, so maybe I wasn't the target audience. Lead from the Outside. If you are a person of color, especially a woman of color, and you want to go into politics or you work in corporate or really maybe, anything, this book will be great for you. Braving the Wilderness was good. But after I read Braving the Wilderness, I read Daring Greatly and I was like, whoa, this one's like so much better. So if you had to pick one, definitely go with Daring Greatly. Again, I said that Loving What Is was definitely my top pick for self-improvement books. Must read it. The Awakened Woman was great too. And Atomic Habits, if that is something that you need in your life. Daring Greatly, you will also enjoy. Okay, so I only read 3 books about money and finance. It's a category that I want to read more about, but I just don't enjoy them. It's like I want the knowledge, but I don't have to do the work to get it, unfortunately. Maybe you could recommend to me an awesome book about finance. I'm wanting to learn more about investing and mutual funds and just being better with your money. I have already gotten out of the credit card phase and I've gotten good at tracking my money. So I'm kind of ready for the next level. I read Get Rich Lucky Bitch. There were a lot of good tips in that book that I appreciated and I use, but this book is soaked in nauseating white privilege mindset BS. It's just revolting. The Total Money Makeover, I don't love this guy. I mean, I don't want to say I don't like him personally, but I don't like the way he talks. And it was free at the library, so I read it, but I don't really love him. Rich Dad Poor Dad, again, a book I had that was at the library. I learned some very good beneficial things. Pay yourself first before you pay anyone else. Don't give your money to the bank, etc., etc. But, I wish that I could find a book about money that was actually a person that I would want to be like, if that makes sense. Okay, so I started 2 books in 2019, but I didn't finish them. But I won't finish them until 2020. That is The Power of Now, which is great, but it's very dense and it's very new concepts, so that's going to take a minute. And I started I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Again, another book with great tips, but the guy is such a jerk when he's talking to you, just calling you names and belittling people. And it's like, why? Why must you do that? I do not understand. So I hope you don't mind, but there were books I read in 2018, but I just wanted to list my absolute favorite ones because I want y'all to know about it and I have your attention right now. So The Untethered Soul, I read in 2018. Read this if your inner voice never shuts up and it drives you nuts. High Performance Habits. If you are bored of all the self-improvement books, but you're still a self-improvement person because you're killing it, this is next level. You are a badass. This book, read it if you need a funny, irreverent, empowering, motivating, self-confidence boosting book, especially if you're not usually into self-improvement books. Okay, so that's it. In 2020, I'm hoping to have a more diverse group of books, but I'm not making any promises. As far as social justice books are concerned, I already have Mountains Beyond Mountains, Evicted, Just Mercy, The Water Dancer, The New Jim Crow, Tightrope, and American Marriage on my list. I've already purchased a book called Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. I'm thinking that's going to be good. And one of my 2020 goals is to read 6 finance books. Please tell me, give me some suggestions. My plan is to not get any more self-improvement books, but just to reread the ones that I have slower, more intentionally, and do more of the work this time. I want to read some books on family travel, world schooling, racism outside the US, and I want to read some books about people who pick our produce and perhaps even work in slaughterhouses and how that impacts them. I don't know enough about that, and I want to know more. So if you know of any books that are about any of those topics, definitely leave them in the comments. Let me know. Let's connect. Tell me what you read too that you also loved. Let me know if you read any of the books that I have suggested as a must-reads, and I will see you next time.